Here, and we are doing our first Facebook Live on Black Entrepreneur Experience podcast. And we have an amazing guest, Ted Santos, with us. Hey, Ted, let me see. Um, are you on? Let's see. There we go. How are you doing?
Oh, I'm doing pretty well.
Thank you for joining us. Thank you for joining us. We are live. And so I just want to say to everyone, Dr. Frances Richards here, and I am the host of Black Entrepreneur Experience podcast. And we interview Black entrepreneurs, innovative thinkers, and thought leaders across the globe. And so if you are joining us live here, we want you to put hashtag live. And if you are joining us on the replay, we want you to put hashtag replay. So Ted Santos is known as an individual that helps CEOs drive innovation and disrupt the marketplace. But I am going to let Ted introduce himself.
Well, first, thank you for having me on your show. It's my pleasure to be here, and this is a profound conversation we are about to have. So my business, the business I'm in the business of producing miracles. CEOs hire me when they are looking to create a breakthrough and they're not sure how to do it with existing resources. So one of the things I do is work with them and their executive team to create disruptive strategies, and then I work with them to transform corporate culture to ensure the organization is able to profitably initiate or execute that breakthrough initiative. So my work revolves around very much around transforming mindset, that's corporate culture, and even to get a CEO to create a breakthrough. Sometimes the breakthrough is knowing what it is. A lot of times they don't know what it is. We are educated to do things more, better, or different, or an improvement of what we have. But breakthrough is a very different mindset. So that's the business that I'm in.
Tell us your zone of genius.
My zone of genius would revolve very much around understanding people and how to get more out of people than they know how to get from themselves.
You know, you and I have connected before, and I want you to. You mentioned a statement that we wanted to get more into. And the question was, is racism a psychological warfare?
That is a huge conversation, uh, and it's very complex, and it would have some people may experience cognitive dissonance if they hear some of the things that I'm going to say, and I would say that because we are educated to see things a certain way. Uh, at one time in Europe, people were educated to believe the Earth was the center of the universe and all the planets revolved around it. And some guy named Copernicus came along and said, "Well, that's inaccurate. I've done some calculations, and all the planets go around the sun, including the Earth." And they executed him for heresy. So, according to all the astronomers and the professors and the church, they all believe and they were educated to believe all the planets revolve around Earth. And that was the education. That was the best education you could have would tell you that. And a lot of times that happens in our society and we don't see it because that's just the way we are educated. So when we talk about racism being psychological warfare, uh, some of the things that I can say around that will make me sound like Copernicus in the time where he said the earth was not the center of the universe.
And tell us if someone is interested in connecting with you.
Sure, you
What's
can
the
find. Sorry.
best way for them to connect?
Uh, Maybe the easiest way is to find me on LinkedIn under Ted Santos. Uh, I have an email address. It's T Santos. That's T like Ted, Santos at turnaroundip.com, and IP is like intellectual property. You can find me on Facebook. Uh, where else? I have a YouTube channel. So there are lots of ways in the world of social media. There are many ways to find me.
And what would you say your zone of genius is, Ted?
Well, that's what I was saying before, is really understanding how to get the most out of people. So I learned I learned some valuable lessons that human beings have something inside of them and they don't always know how to pull it out of them. So you could say I've dedicated my life to understanding human nature or the human paradigm, and in understanding how to pull people out to operate beyond their known limits. So I've done that in an organization. I've done it in intimate relationships. I've done it with my siblings. So uh, it is very possible to help people see a side of themselves or see themselves in a way that they ordinarily don't know how to see.
Why is that important? Someone's listening to this interview and they're like, I'm not quite understanding. Why is that important for Ted to pull something out of me that's in me?
Well, technically, it's not. You don't have to. You can just keep going with business as usual, and you'll do the things that you want to do in life. However, if you are interested in knowing what's possible beyond what you've been taught you can do, uh, that is where someone like me would support you in creating a breakthrough. There are people have blind spots. We have, and it could be part of our education system. It could be from a childhood event that the way you see yourself and the way you see your world is shaped by your environment. So it tells you what you can or cannot do. You hear so many times, whether you're a woman or you're melanated, you have brown skin, and the belief is, well, we're not allowed to do that, or we can't do that, or we'll never be organized, and we'll never be able to do this. Technically there's no proof for that, yet people believe it. And it goes back to what I was saying about Copernicus saying that though people believe the earth was the center of the universe, that was very inaccurate. So we have so many presuppositions that we grow up with, and we swear by them. We know what our limits are, and we won't operate beyond them. So when someone like myself is able to pull more out of you, what I'm saying is I can get you to operate beyond your presupposed limits. And that's even if you're a professional athlete. Uh, Perhaps another great example is a guy by the name of Roger Bannister was the first person to run the mile in under 4 minutes. That was in 1956. Before that, it was believed that it was humanly impossible to run the mile under 4 minutes. Today, the world record is 3 minutes and 43 seconds. 3 minutes and 40 something seconds, the mile. And before 1956, no one could run it because the presupposition was that it was impossible. So the way you trained, the way you ate, the way you ran, the way you saw yourself was that you could run 4 minutes flat, except the human being was not designed to run under 4 minutes. So he had to transform the way he saw himself, the way he trained, the way he saw the mile. I mean, the mile is still 4 laps around the track. That has not changed since 1956. Yet, the way people train and see themselves is very different than it was in 1955 and before. So we really don't know our limits, and there are many examples in the world where uh, some of the belief systems hurt people or even cause death.
Ted, you've worked with many CEOs and many individuals around the world, and we would be here all day. I want you to share a story when you talk about breakthroughs and unlimited beliefs of a transformation that happened because of your assistance. Tell us the backstory.
Okay. Hmm. Well, do you mind if I tell you one about a gentleman who had never been a president or CEO, and he hired me to become that? Would that be a good one? I mean, I can tell you.
Yeah, and absolutely. And let me say this to you. Feel free not to say names or whatever if it's going to just share what you can share.
Sure,
Absolutely.
sure. So I met a gentleman who was a brilliant guy, early 50s, Stanford graduate. Uh, I think he had a golf scholarship, so smart, athletic, and worked in the financial industry. And he was so smart that he was actually shooting himself in the foot. And I could smell that this was a guy who wanted more. He was a vice president when I met him. I knew he wanted more than that. And so he hired me. And part of the reason he hired me is because we were sitting down over lunch, and I said to him, I said, "You're one of those guys who's so smart that you annihilate people rather quickly, and that's killing you. You'll never be a leader in an organization if you annihilate all the people around you." And he was amazed that over lunch I was able to see that. So he hired me, and the breakthrough for him was to become a president or CEO. So I did work with him. He had several interviews, and it came down to two companies, and he was actually hired in a financial institution to be the successor to the founder. So he did actually become the president of a financial institution, which was not the normal trajectory for him. He would have been a VP and had a small team to manage, but now he was the last. The buck stopped with him. He was the man.
Thank you so much. Ted, we want to thank you so much for joining us on Black Entrepreneur Experience Live. Before we let you go, I want to ask you one last question.
Sure.
You conducted this interview. What is the one question you would have asked yourself? I want you to ask the question and answer it.
Why is psychological war? Why is racism psychological warfare? I would have asked that question, and my answer would have been, uh, that it's, and this is going to be tough for people to hear. It's psychological warfare because racism is not the problem. The reason racism is not the problem because there is no racism, and people would say that's ridiculous. I can tell you things that have happened to me or my parents and grandparents. Yes, people did say that. This is one of those areas where you talk about breakthrough and altering perspectives and altering your view of the playing field. Instead of looking at my skin color or your hair texture against someone else's skin color and hair texture, understand that this is really about group economics. And if you understand group economics is no different than having a team or a tribe, then you understand every team does what's in the best interest of their team. Anyone could be on the team, regardless of your skin color, as long as you're committed to the best interest of the team. So if you understand you're a team playing on the field, one of the things that teams do to defeat the other team is they use psychological warfare. They will taunt you. Muhammad Ali used to taunt his opponents in the ring. Mike Tyson used psychological warfare before the fight stopped, before it started, by staring in the eyes. So there are so many ways to use psychological warfare to distract your opponent from the end goal. And if you understand it as group economics or team economics, you understand you want to acquire natural resources so that you can take care of your team and have an advantage always. You can feed them, you can clothe them, you can provide shelter, employment. You keep your team strong. And you use things like racism to get the other teams distracted and angry, and they never focus on economic power so that they can feed, clothe, and house and employ their own people. So, uh, if you look at racism as this thing that's real and it's stopping you, you make yourself a victim. If you look at it as a team sport and racism is just a tool to distract you, you then begin to focus on economic power.
Thank you for that. Ted, in closing, share with our audience again the best way for them to connect with you and to do business with you. And feel free to leave all your social media handles.
Sure, sure. Sure, you can find me on LinkedIn under Ted Santos. You'll find me on Facebook. And I'll give you my email address, which is T like Ted Santos, Santos, at turnaroundip.com. And IP is like intellectual property.
Thank you, Ted. That's a wrap.
Thank you.